Yo, what's up, everybody? It's your boy, London VK Alucard, and I'm doing a reaction to Castlevania, another Netflix. I don't know if this is supposed to tie in with the other Castlevania TV shows. I mean Netflix series. But let's get it.
Don't listen to her, Richter.
I have no choice.
There's always a choice.
I'm sorry, Richter. He knows you kill vampires.
But I pray for you.
I'm so sorry.
So part of you has died.
We're looking for someone called Belmont.
Castlevania Nocturne. Let's see that again. So is he a Belmont? He might be a Belmont. Belmont? Damn, I can't even say it. A Belmont. He might be a Belmont.
Don't listen to her, Richter.
I have no choice.
There's always a choice.
I'm sorry, Richter. He knows you kill vampires.
But I pray for you.
I'm so sorry.
So part of you has died.
We're looking for someone called Belmont.
He might be a Belmont. His name is, what's his name? Richard?
Don't listen to her, Richter.
Oh,
I have
Richter.
no choice.
There's always a choice.
I'm sorry, Richter. He knows you kill vampires.
But I pray for you.
I'm so sorry.
So part of you has died.
We're looking
Let
for
me see,
someone
let me
called...
look it up. Richter. Richter is what they said. Castlevania. Ah, he is a Belmont. He's a Belmont. He is. Yeah, he's a Belmont. Oh, wow. So this might tie in with it, then. Okay. So we can do the origin story, too, of the Belmonts. Let's do that.
Carl, why doesn't NJM use mascots?
Mascots are silly. Saving money isn't.
You think I'm silly?
On July 8th, I'm putting together the greatest team ever. 𝖭𝑚, Valkyrie, Sigourney.
Kinds of alternate universes. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Lords of Shadow. Love you, but... So, to keep things simple, we're only covering the canon Belmonts in the main timeline of the games. That means no Sonya Belmont, Reinhard Schneider, or everyone's favorite, Sybil Belmont. Sorry to all you fans of Akumajo Dracula, Akuma no Chi, Chino Akumu. Anyway, hi everyone, I'm Mario Bueno, proud to be joining the leaderboard, and today we're going to be reviewing the Belmont family tree. Leon Belmont, born...
Alright, y'all, I'm gonna let this play through.
Leon Belmont is a young but very capable orphan-turned-knight in the somewhat vaguely defined feudal land of Europe. Serving in the army of the church, he befriends the genius tactician Matthias Kronk.
But make sure, I'm gonna let this play through. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below if y'all gonna watch the Netflix series. And make sure y'all zap. Oh, damn. Make sure y'all, I'm about to say, make sure y'all bite that like button, bite that subscribe button, become a member of the Vamp Army. That's all we do is in a feeding frenzy. Take care. I'll see y'all next video.
And gradually earns the title of Baron. When Matthias learns that his beloved wife Elizabetha has died of a sudden and terrible illness, he returns home and parts ways with Leon. 1 year later, Leon's home is besieged by monsters, but the church forbids him to leave the army and intervene. They insist he helps them in their war against the heretics instead. Matthias returns and informs Leon that his betrothed, Sarah Trantoul, has been kidnapped by the powerful and fabulously attired vampire, Walter Bernhardt. Bernhardt resides in a castle in the Forest of Eternal Night and frequently alleviates his boredom by baiting out, tormenting, and then defeating powerful warriors. Leon finally abandons the church and his title of Baron and sets off to rescue his beloved. On his journey, Leon meets Rinaldo Gandolfi, an old alchemist living at the outskirts of the forest. Walter had kidnapped Rinaldo's daughter and turned her into a vampire, so the alchemist is very happy to help Leon defeat Walter and his demonic guardians. He gifts Leon the magical whip of alchemy, which Leon uses to fight his way through the castle. When he finally reaches Walter, however, he's unable to harm him. Luckily, he escapes with his ailing fiancée. Back at the house, Rinaldo notices that Walter bit Sarah and that she's about to lose her humanity and turn fully vampiric. Sarah wishes to die instead of becoming a monster, and Leon honors her last wish. Using Rinaldo's alchemy, they fuse her soul into the whip of alchemy, transforming it into the Vampire Killer, the Belmont family's iconic whip. In a dramatic battle, Leon slays Walter with the Vampire Killer, only to find his old friend Matthias there. With Death's help, Matthias absorbs Walter's soul into the alchemical Crimson Stone. Turns out that the entire incident was Matthias's plan to get the Crimson Stone and become a powerful immortal vampire, all to spite God for not saving his wife Elizabetha. Matthias offers Leon immortality because he has suffered the same unjust loss of his beloved, but Leon vows to keep his promise to Sarah. He doesn't want to let anyone else suffer at the hands of vampires as she did. So Matthias leaves Leon to fight against death, but Leon emerges triumphant. From there, Leon declares that the Belmonts will one day destroy Matthias. Thus begins the Belmonts' eternal struggle against evil. The Vampire Killer passes through generations as the Belmont descendants struggle ceaselessly to combat the forces of evil. It's also from this point they begin living in exile, shunned from society for fear of their powers and their connection to the occult. A quick but important aside to the Belmont lineage, we need to point out that during this time Matthias remains dormant, amassing power for quite a while. He changes his name to 𝕬𝖎𝖙𝖆𝖕, the King of the Night, and takes on a second wife, Lisa. The two of them have a child who is a dhampir, or half-human, half-vampire, Adrian Fahrenheit Tepesh, more commonly known as Alucard. At some point around 1475, the church arrests Lisa under suspicion of witchcraft and burns her alive at the stake. Once Dracula finds out, he flies into a rage, declaring war against all of humanity and unleashing his dark forces upon the world. Which brings us to Trevor Belmont, born 1456 AD. When Count Dracula's genocide of humanity begins, Trevor Belmont is a 20-year-old vampire hunter living on the fringes of society. The region of Wallachia is under siege by Dracula's forces, and all of the church's attempts to defeat Dracula have failed. Desperate, the church reaches out to the Belmont family as a last resort, and Trevor begins his great journey to defeat Dracula. Over the course of his quest, he teams up with a trio of powerful allies. The first is Grant Dynasty, who, besides having a name that sounds like he's going to drop a really sick mixtape, is a Wallachian thief turned freedom fighter. Trevor saves Grant after Dracula defeated the thief and turned him into a demon. The next is 𝖳𝖆 Belnades, a powerful mage who was part of the church's failed Dracula hunting party. A Cyclops kidnapped her and turned her into a stone statue before she was also saved by Trevor. And finally, there's Dracula's son, Alucard. He's searching for a powerful ally to help him defeat his father, so he challenges Trevor to a duel to test his strength and resolve. And wouldn't you know it, Trevor passes the test. The four unite to defeat Dracula's forces and eventually Dracula himself. After the climactic battle, Dracula's castle crumbles and the heroes part ways. Alucard, guilty over killing his dad, enters into a centuries-long slumber to hide his powers and ease his pain. Meanwhile, Trevor and 𝖳𝖆 marry, and Grant sets about rebuilding Wallachia. But despite their victory, the curse of Dracula still torments the land. After 3 years of prosperity, the area is ravaged by disease, famine, and the beginnings of dark magic. Trevor sets off to investigate rumors of a cult of Dracula worshippers. This leads him to an abandoned monastery where he discovers Hector, a devil forge master with the power to summon demons to Earth. Trevor attacks him and upon defeating him learns that Hector defected and fought against Dracula during the war 3 years ago. Trevor then tracks down Isaac, the other devil forge master and rival of Hector, who is plotting a rise to power. Isaac and Trevor clash, but Isaac flees when Hector arrives, having lightly wounded Trevor and taken a sample of his blood. Isaac uses Trevor's Belmont blood to break the magical seals protecting the depths of Dracula's old castle ruins. Hector and Trevor both vow to defeat Isaac, and Trevor helps Hector pursue Isaac into the depths. After Hector defeats the powerful demon Dullahan, Isaac amasses enough dark magic to raise Dracula's castle once more, and he severely wounds Trevor in a sneak attack. Thankfully, Isaac's younger sister Julia saves Trevor from his near-fatal injuries. For the rest of this adventure, Trevor takes a back seat to recover from his injuries. Rest assured, Hector does go on to stop Isaac, prevent the full resurrection of Dracula, and rid the land of the curse. And while that's impressive and all, Trevor had no part of it, and this is a Belmont-focused timeline, so maybe next family tree, Hector? Anyway, thanks to Hector, Julia, and Trevor, an era of Dracula-free peace begins and goes on for about 100 years. We can assume that Trevor and Sypha happily live out the rest of their years, free to start a family without worrying about battling demonic horrors. Happily ever after. For now. Christopher, birth date unknown, and 𝖭𝖈𝖎𝖆, born 1576. In 1576, exactly 100 years after Trevor Belmont first defeated Dracula, the King of the Night resurrects and his castle returns. So begins the legend that once every 100 years, when the faith in God is forgotten, Dracula will come back to life. Christopher Belmont, the current head of the clan, takes up his ancestral charge along with the vampire killer and seeks to vanquish Dracula. He traverses graveyards and caves, slaying the armies of darkness. And for what it's worth, Christopher is the first Belmont to shoot fireballs from the vampire killer, so with that kind of literal firepower at his disposal, it's no surprise that he defeats Dracula and destroys his castle. But this time, Dracula has learned some new tricks. He feigns his death, turns himself into mist, and escapes to begin plotting his revenge. Meanwhile, Christopher goes on to have a son, 𝖭𝖈𝖜. Skip ahead 15 years to 1591, and 𝖭𝖈𝖜 Belmont has just come of age. As was tradition, a ceremony is held for Christopher to pass on the vampire killer to his very capable son. An era of peace seemed certain under the two Belmonts, but surprise! The day after the ceremony, 𝖭𝖈𝖜 disappears, the four castles rise, and Dracula returns to human form. It's basically the worst quinceañera ever. Dracula possesses the young Belmont after 15 years of planning, siphoning his powers and turning him into a demon. But like a true Belmont badass, Christopher takes charge against Dracula once more. He's forced to battle 𝖭𝖈𝖜, but frees him from Dracula's thrall. You can probably figure out the rest by now. Christopher beats Dracula, 100 years of banishment, blah 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 blah. Fast forward to my new main in Smash, Simon Belmont, born 1669. Nice. On Easter Day, 1691, 100 years after his last defeat at Christopher's hand, Dracula returns to full power. This time the blame falls on a group of cultists who perform a dark mass to resurrect the Dark Lord. So, a 22-year-old Simon Belmont rises to the challenge of his family task and, over the course of the original adventure in the series, fights the forces of darkness and reaches Dracula. He defeats the evil Count but is unable to fully kill him, and Dracula secretly puts a curse and a wound on Simon's back before disappearing. 7 years later, in 1698, Simon's body is deteriorating from the worsening curse. A mysterious woman visits him in the Belmont family graveyard to give him a warning. The curse will kill Simon and cause Dracula to revive. The only way Simon can stop it is to find and burn the parts of Dracula's body scattered across the land. So begins Simon's quest, aka Castlevania 2, the NES one, not the Game Boy one, which we technically already covered in Christopher's entry for those of you keeping track. He travels far and wide, defeating many foes to get Dracula's relics, the nail, the eyeball, the rib bone, the ring, and the heart of Dracula. But when he tries to burn them all in the ruins of Dracula's castle, the ghost of Dracula emerges from a sixth hidden relic, his fang. Simon fights off Dracula and banishes him for good. Or at least for a while. Juiced Belmont.
Light years of crowd-pleasing nostalgic blast.
To infinity
and beyond. Disney and Pixar's Lightyear. Tickets available now.
First, there's sour. And then there's sweet. Sour Patch Kids.
Belmont, born 1730. 50 years later, Simon's grandson Juiced Belmont is upholding the family's duties, fighting evil of all sorts and hunting down Dracula's relics. Maxim, Juiced's best friend, returns from a 2-year training expedition wounded and suffering from amnesia. He warns Juiced that their friend 𝖭𝖈𝖜 has been kidnapped, and the two leave to try and save her. Maxim leads Juiced to a mysterious castle shrouded in mist where 𝖭𝖈𝖜 is being held. Too wounded to continue on, Maxim stays behind while Juiced searches for 𝖭𝖈𝖜. Juiced fights Dracula's minions throughout the castle only to discover the horrible truth. Maxim, in a desperate bid to prove himself stronger than Juiced, had sought out to gather Dracula's relics just as Simon had 50 years prior. Unfortunately, their power proved too much for Maxim, who ended up possessed by their magic, splitting his personality in two and creating the two castles in the mist. Evil Maxim kidnapped 𝖭𝖈𝖜 to lure Juiced there, wishing to sacrifice her and Juiced to revive Dracula once more. Juiced defeats the evil Maxim, driving away the ghost of Dracula formed by the relics. The three friends combine their strength, release Dracula's hold on Maxim, and banish his castle back into the mist. Richter Belmont, born 1773. The next Belmont to step up to the vampire-slaying plate is Richter. To no one's surprise, the Dark Lord Dracula rises once again in 1792, this time resurrected by a dark priest named Shaft. Shaft and Dracula work together to kidnap a bunch of young women to help augment the Count's powers, and maybe even find a new wife. These women include Iris, a doctor, Tara, a nun, Annette, Richter Belmont's fiancée, and Maria Renard, a then 12-year-old magical vampire huntress and distant relative of the Belmont clan. Her family's branch is too far out to trace. Richter sets out to save Annette, slay Dracula, and drive back his evil forces, all with some magical assistance from Maria, his very distant cousin or whatever. After a dramatic confrontation, Richter is victorious over Dracula, but the battle leaves him weakened. The lingering spirit of the Dark Priest Shaft sees his opportunity and places a curse on Richter. 5 years later, in 1797, Shaft's power has finally returned. Using the dormant curse, he kidnaps and brainwashes Richter. Dracula's castle rises again, and Alucard, sensing a great evil growing, emerges from his 300-year slumber. Maria, shocked by the return of the castle, goes there to try and save the missing Richter. Alucard rushes to the castle to defeat his father's forces and stop his resurrection. Maria and Alucard meet and work together to free Richter from Shaft's possession. Shaft flees to Dracula's true castle, an inverted castle growing out of the top of the old one. While Shaft's original plan was to use Richter to summon the Dark Lord, he tries instead to sacrifice himself as the vessel for Dracula's resurrection. He's only partially successful, and Alucard defeats the imperfect form of his father, banishing and destroying the castle. Alucard wishes to return to his centuries-long rest and leaves, but Maria, now smitten with Alucard, follows him to convince him to stay awake in the world with her. And what of Richter? Well, he resumes his family duties of hunting evil, but eventually disappears from history. That is, unless your personal canon includes him literally whipping all kinds of beloved Nintendo characters in Smash Bros. Ultimate. We do know that Richter relinquished ownership of the vampire killer, but we can only guess as to why. Maybe he was too guilt-ridden about helping to resurrect Dracula, even though he was under Shaft's control? Whatever the case, at some point he hands the vampire killer off to the Morris clan. The Morrises are technically related to the Belmonts, but the bloodline isn't clear. They're like your uncle who you're not actually related to, you just kind of call him your uncle and you see him at barbecues and stuff, but you're not blood related, he's just really tight with your parents. Like that. The Morris era. Quincy, John, and Jonathan. While the Morris clan are capable vampire hunters, the fact that they are not Belmonts means they can't use the vampire killer's full power without risk of hurting themselves. Case in point, in 1897, 100 years after Alucard and Richter's victory, Quincy Morris, birth date unknown, kills a revived Dracula but is fatally wounded in the struggle. The vampire killer passes to his son John. 20 years later, in 1917, John Morris, born 1895, takes up arms against Elizabeth Bartley, a prominent vampire and niece of Dracula. To resurrect the Dark Lord, she orchestrates the start of World War I as a mass sacrifice. And you thought they went hard for the Philosopher's Stone in Fullmetal Alchemist. John is joined by Eric Lecard, a young Spanish aristocrat who was also distantly related to the Belmonts. The Lecard family was entrusted with the Alucard Spear, a weapon forged by Alucard to help protect the world from darkness in an era with no Belmonts to protect it. Eric seeks revenge against Elizabeth Bartley for turning his girlfriend into a vampire and works together with John Morris to slay Bartley and drive Dracula away. Despite their victory, John is weakened and eventually killed by the power of the vampire killer. He passes the whip on to his son Jonathan, born in 1926, but only after telling Eric to hide its full power from Jonathan to protect him from its dangers. In 1944, the horror, chaos, and deaths of World War II bring back the castle of Dracula, which is taken over by a purple suit-wearing vampire/artist named Bronner. Jonathan Morris teams up with his childhood friend, Charlotte Allen, a powerful witch and descendant of Saifa Belnades. Along the way, Jonathan unlocks the true power of the vampire killer by defeating an illusion of Richter Belmont. With the power of a true Belmont, Jonathan and Charlotte defeat Bronner and drive away the unsealed Dracula, ushering in an era of peace. That is until Julius Belmont is born in 1980. On August 11, 1999, when Julius is 19 years old, a total solar eclipse covers Eastern Europe and the long-prophesized final resurrection of Dracula begins. He commences a full-scale war against humanity, but our heroes have a plan. Julius, the latest Belmont, teams up with Alucard, the Belnades, and the Hakubas, a family of Japanese priests who by this point might also be related to the Belmonts in some roundabout way. At some point, the Morris clan passed the vampire killer back to the Belmonts, so Julius is fully equipped. Julius slays Dracula, and the Count's castle is sealed away in the eclipse, cutting him off from the source of his power, and ending his resurrection cycle on Earth. This is considered the official death of Dracula, like, for keeps. But of course, his powers still live on. When the great battle ends, Julius is left with amnesia, only remembering that his name begins with J. 36 years later, two Japanese high school students named Soma Cruz and Mina Hakuba are at the Hakuba Shrine to watch a solar eclipse when they are suddenly transported to Dracula's castle. They meet 𝖜𝖜𝖈𝖎𝖙𝖐 in disguise as a Japanese government agent, real subtle there Alucard, who reveals Soma's awakened power to absorb the souls of monsters and use them in combat. Soma sets off into the castle to try and find a way home for him and Mina. Along the way, he meets Yoko Belnades, a witch of the Belnades clan, and the amnesiac Jay, who is slowly regaining his memories. They work together to defeat Graham Jones, a mysterious cult leader with dark powers who believes himself to be the reincarnation of Dracula. Julius slowly regains his memories and finds the vampire killer, but suspects that Soma may be the true heir of Dracula's power and prepares to kill him should Dracula take over Soma's body. Soma confronts and destroys Graham Jones, and then discovers that, surprise, he is the next incarnation of Dracula, but learns from 𝖜𝖜𝖈𝖎𝖙𝖐 that he can confront the core of chaos, the source of Dracula's power, before it's too late. Julius vows to kill Soma should he fail at this task, but Soma succeeds after a great struggle, retaining his humanity and returning to Earth with Mina, Julius, Alucard, and Yoko, leaving Dracula's castle to vanish into the eclipse. But, as with all things Castlevania, this piece is rather short-lived, as 1 year later a cult leader named 𝖭𝖫𝖈 attempts to revive the Dark Lord. To do so, she can force Soma to transform or just kill him and create another heir to Dracula. She has recruited two possible heirs, 𝖜𝖜𝖈𝖈 and 𝕍𝍍𝖆𝖆. Once again, Julius teams up with Soma, Yoko Belnades, and 𝖜𝖜𝖈𝖎𝖙𝖐 to stop the cult. At one point, Julius fights Dario, but gets his ass handed to him. So for the bulk of this adventure, Julius takes a back seat while Soma fights Celia and her cronies. He does use his power to break through a massive barrier, but it leaves him exhausted for the rest of the adventure. If you want to see Julius in action, you'll just have to beat the game and swap over to Julius mode. Ah, the halcyon days of 2005, where you didn't have to pay for an expanded campaign. Thankfully, Soma stops the big bad, all while resisting his own internal darkness. With the evil defeated, Julius escapes the collapsing castle with Soma and the gang, now free to live their lives in peace. And with that, we haven't heard anything of the Belmont clan since. Given that Julius was 56 during the whole 𝖭𝖫𝖈𝖎𝖃 debacle, it's possible that there's a Julius Jr. running around. Will the Belmont legacy ever continue? Well, the ball's in your court, Konami. Hopefully that shiny new Castlevania collection is a feeler to get cracking on some new entries to the Belmont family scrapbook.